Greetings, Avatar.
Hurry up! You don't want to miss the trial, do you?
Hey, old friend, have you heard the news? Some pirate woman was brought into town to be tried for murder. Isn't that great? These pirates have been carrying on like they can do just anything they want. It'll be so good to finally see one of them brought to justice. I hope she gets the stake.
What is your name, friend?
Luke. The name's Luke. I'm a ranger here in U.
Do you know this pirate's name?
Oh, let's see. They had her name posted up not too long ago. What was it? Ah, it was a bird name of some sort. It was Robin, maybe.
Raven?
That's it. Raven. They're going to hang her good, I tell you.
But what if she's not guilty of anything?
What are you, a softie? All soft on crime? It's people like you that are bringing this land down. Let me tell you something, friend. U is the town of justice. Around here, we make sure that justice is served. That means that pirate girl is going to get what she deserves.
Sounds exciting. Goodbye.
Oh well, bye.
They should burn her! That's what a murderer deserves, burning.
Are you the one? Which one?
The one who's been stealing my pumpkins. I know it's you.
I didn't steal your pumpkins.
Well, someone has. And I've heard the man looks something like you.
I assure you that I am not the culprit.
And if you don't remove yourself from these premises, I'll have you arrested, pumpkin thief.
I have heard all evidence. Does anyone have anything further to add?
Your Honor, I swear to you, I am innocent.
That will do.
But, sir,
I said that will do. As I was saying, it has been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that Jean-Paul, being the tavern keeper, did purposely and with malicious intent allow one of his patrons to become intoxicated with ale. The defendant did not effectively warn the plaintiff that the plaintiff could, under the influence of the defendant's ale, act recklessly and without thought to personal injury.
but, Your Honor,
That will be enough. I find the tavern keeper's actions unconscionable. I find the defendant guilty as charged. Jean-Paul, keeper of the Tavern of Yew, I sentence you to prison to await your fate. Death by fire.
no, it can't be.
Ah, but it is. The court is now ready to hear the next case. Who brings this case into court?
To proclaim that I, the Sagaroon, do bring forth this case.
Very well. Who stands accused, and what are the charges?
To hereby accuse the pirate wench known as Raven of the willful and wanton destruction of the gargoyle race. To state specifically that she knowingly and intentionally brought down the glorious dome that protected the city of Ambrosia. To drown the inhabitants of the proud gargoyle city. To further state that to ensure the death of the gargoyle race, Raven did then kill the gargoyle queen, thus making the reproduction of gargoyles impossible. To finally state her most heinous crime, to ensure the destruction of future generations of gargoyles, this Raven did destroy the Egg Nest. To state that Raven is guilty of all of these crimes, and of the destruction of a proud race.
Defendant, you are charged with the crime of genocide, the willful destruction of an entire race. How do you plead?
Wait a minute, Your Honor. I have something to say.
Silence! I will not tolerate such outbursts in my court. Now, how does the defendant plead?
Does it really matter how I plead?
The defendant will respect this court and enter her plea, or she will be harshly punished.
Fine, let's get this over with. I plead guilty.
No. Your Honor, she didn't do any of those things. I did them.
I told you to be quiet. She's obviously guilty. She just said that she is. One more word from you, and you will be held in contempt, the punishment for which is death at the stake. Now be quiet. Raven, this court finds you guilty of the crime of genocide. You are to be burned at the stake until you are dead. You are to be transported to the prison wrong immediately, until such time as your sentence is carried out. Do you have any final words?
Yeah. Piss on your justice.
Very well. You've made it easy on this court to order your death. Bailiff, take her away.
To see the Avatar. To think that he wishes to join my people as they sleep forever.
I did not cause the destruction of your people.
To lie. To have been told by Visagralem that you killed gargoyles. To kill you for destroying Great Gargoyle City.
You have to let me prove that what I say is true.
To not be smart, but to have been taught by Visagralem to listen to others, and to not make judgments. To be fair even to you, Avatar, the one who killed my people. Very well. To give Avatar the chance to prove himself.
Your true enemy isn't me, but the columns that invaded Britannia. It affected your humble people and twisted their minds, causing their pride to take over their common sense. Through no fault of their own, the dome was beginning to collapse, but the column made them refuse to see the signs. When Wislam's sculpture of the Queen was activated, it added to the instability and cracked the dome, flooding the city.
To lie. To know that you wanted gargoyles dead, and to see that you killed them. To know that without a queen, gargoyles now doomed.
I'm sorry that I could not save your city, but I have brought something that can save your people. As I left the city, I took a queen's egg from her chamber, that another queen might be born, and the gargoyle race can continue.
No. To be possible? To think Avatar tells truth? To see the egg, and to know that now we have a new queen. Oh, To know my people died because of pride.
So you understand that Raven is innocent?
To see truth. To see that wrong has been done. To talk to Visagrilin. To tell him what happened. To know he is smart and will know what to do.
What do you want me to do with the egg?
To go and activate the lift, so you may take egg to Visagrilin. To show Visagrilin that all is not lost. To see truth. To see that wrong has been done. To know he is smart. To go and activate the lift. To see that you have finally fulfilled my people's prophecy, Avatar. To think that you must wish to die. To think you a fool to come before me.
Visagrilin, please.
To not die yet, though. To know you should live to see your loved ones suffer. To be in agony. To see in my mind the faces of those who died. To know such pain. To know that you killed them, Avatar. To know that you killed the gargoyle race. To know that they will not be forgotten.
Visagrilin, please. I have brought you a queen egg.
To see the queen's egg. To remember Desmond spoke of an egg, but to not have understood. To see that he was right. You have saved a gargoyle queen. But to be confused. To see that you vanquished my people, but saved one egg.
I am sorry for your race, but pride was the culprit. Visagrilin, if I had really wanted to destroy your people, would I have brought you a queen's egg?
to admit that you make sense. To now begin to understand what Desmond was trying to tell me, and to be devastated. To know that pride destroyed my people. To regret that I could not prevent this calamity. To owe you an apology, Avatar. To have believed you guilty, and to have knowingly blamed your companion in an attempt to repay you for destroying my people. To have been so wrong. How to prove that I am sorry?
Do you know where I might find the Sigil of Justice?
To know that the sigil is known as the Quill of Justice. To know that the Book of Justice holds the location of the quill.
Do you know the mantra of justice?
To not know the mantra, but to advise that you consult the Book of Justice that is housed in the library.
Have you learned anything about the lenses needed to view the Codex?
To have found the red lens after much searching. To happily provide it in thanks for all that you have done. To hope that it serves you well. To be sadly responsible for your friend's plight in the prison. To now wish to help you save her. To meet me in Wong by following the northern trail east across the bridge. To show you a secret entrance to the prison.
Thank you. I will meet you there.
Do you need provisions?
Yes.
It's most gratifying that the trial was a fair one. Our citizens must be able to rely on the fact that they can get a fair shake in this world.
Hello, stranger. Hello there. How are things? Say, I'm glad that trial is over. Now maybe people can calm down. They convicted that poor girl just like I said they would. But at least it's over. So, what can I do for you today?
I would like some archery training.
I can teach you my flaming arrow shot for a mere 2,000 gold. Are you interested in some training?
Yes, I am.
You know, speed and accuracy are crucial with a bow, and right now you're not ready for formal training. Go out and practice a little bit. When you're ready, I'll be happy to train you.
One comes forth on a quest for the Quill of Justice. Is this not right?
Yes, I am looking for the quill.
Then you know that you must be tested, no? Prove to me that you know and love justice, and the quill shall be yours. Will you agree to this?
Test me however you see fit.
Very well. I shall ask you 3 questions. If you answer them properly, you may have the quill. First, if a wolf kills a child, is it just for the people to hunt down the wolf and kill it because it is a dangerous animal?
No. The wolf is merely acting according to nature.
Very good. It is unjust to accuse the wolf of being evil. It is merely being a wolf. Another question. If a man kills your brother, is it just for you to ignore the laws of the land and avenge your brother by killing his killer?
No, it isn't.
You are correct. While it is understandable to hate the killer, it is for the people, not one person, to determine justice. People should not confuse vengeance with justice. Now, for the third question. A man accidentally destroys something that belongs to you. Is it just for you to destroy something of his that is of equal value?
No, that is not justice.
You are quite correct. The man must be responsible for his actions, but that does not give you the right to destroy something of his. Where is the justice in wanton destruction? You have proven that you are wise and understand the ways of justice. You may therefore take from me this, the quill of justice. Use it well and justly. Farewell.
To find entrance to prison underwater. To advise you to cleanse the Justice Shrine before returning to you. To do so is the only hope for justice in the land. To let you rest assured that I will plead your case before the judge. But know that you must cleanse the shrine first.
I'll do that. Thanks for letting me know.
To meet me at the Court of Justice when you are done.
Prisoner, stop right where you are.